Hi, shalom, friends. I read about a surgeon who always, of course, met with his patients, tried to reassure them, and he was always perplexed. They're going into a very highly professional setting. Why are they so anxious? And he realized that it wasn't only the anxiety of the surgery, it was more the anxiety of the checking in. So he decided, he would like to actually experience something to understand and to relate better. So as I recall, he checked himself into the hospital. Of course, they know he was not going to be operated on, but he requested that he be treated as if he was a bona fide patient. He shows up at 8 o'clock, and he's in the waiting room, and he waits, and he could feel the tension in the room. Everyone is there waiting for their place. A half hour later, very courteously, a nurse comes out and greets him, brings him to a room, does the vital signs, and then tells him to get undressed. And as soon as he's wearing this silly robe, he already feels uncomfortable. And he's waiting, and then another very courteous nurse comes out and brings him to a room. And to make the long story short, 2 hours passed, and here's a surgeon who's very comfortable in the hospital setting, knows that this is only for him, this is like an actor in a play. And by the time he was on the gurney, looking up at the ceiling, people walking around, everyone very polite, everyone very professional, everyone very directed, but who has time to sit and reassure him? He began to feel something of what maybe his patients are feeling. Of course, when he put back on his clothes and became back the professional, the way he treated his patients and tried to alleviate some of their nervousness and anxiety, it came from a completely different perspective. Because as we all know, until you experience something yourself, you can't truly relate to others. One of the most truly remarkable oddities of Jewish people, it comes Passover. Passover is the time that we celebrate our freedom. And it's actually the national birthday of the Jewish people. And we spend almost an entire night telling the story of we were slaves. And not only that, we actually eat items by the meal or before the meal that remind us of slavery, of degradation, of the lack of power. We were defenseless. Because you have to stop and say to yourself, there's obviously God who gave us this command. There are benefits as well in the physical world, not only spiritually speaking. What benefits are there? And upon just a moment's reflection, you come to the conclusion that Jewish people know what pain and suffering is. Jewish people understand very well what it means to be a persecuted minority, what it means to be enslaved. And that's why it is no secret that the Jewish people as a nation and as a people are not only generous, but extraordinarily generous, extraordinarily compassionate. Maimonides, who lived over 850 years ago, born in Spain, went to North Africa, was in Morocco, landed up in Israel, and finally settled in Egypt, he writes, "In all of my travelings, I have never seen, nor have I ever heard of a Jewish community that does not have institutions to feed the poor and to take care of the traveler." It's an amazing thing. Why do we have that so ingrained in us? It's natural. The rabbis tell us that we're known for certain tendencies, and two of the three are that we are rachamanim, compassionate ones, golei chasadim, those that give kindness. Do you know of any multi-billionaire that once a year or more gathers his family in his multi-million mansion and has them eat crackers to remind themselves that his grandfather was once poor. Of course not. But we do that. One of the very great philanthropists who lived in Lodz, Poland, in the beginning of the 1900s, was a man, I think his first name was Israel, and if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Poznansky. And he actually had many mills. He was a very wealthy man living in Lodz, and he was a great philanthropist. He got along very well with the Rabbi Meisel. He loved him, he revered, he respected the Rabbi to no end. And the Rabbi, from his part, always badgered him about giving charity. Well, we're talking about 1900s. People heated their home with wood burning furnaces. Poor people never had enough wood. And the community had a special fund where they had stored firewood for the poor. It never was enough. It's impossible to have enough. So it always had to be replenished. Someone had to pay for the wood. The first person who the rabbi would ask was this, Mr. Poznansky, who always responded with a smile and very generous. In one of the stories, he tells the rabbi with a smile, he says, Rabbi, you know I'm a very wealthy man, but if you had my money, I think you would go through it in a month. To which the rabbi responded equally with a smile, if I had your money, I would have your heart. So I think we would still have it. But the story goes, it was one bitter winter night, and the rabbi was told that there's no wood in the community chest, and there are people that are begging for wood. So what should he do? He went to the magnate, and he knocks on the door, and the servant opens, knowing of the close relationship between the rabbi and this philanthropist. He said to the rabbi, please come in. And the rabbi said, no, I'll wait over here. He felt a little uncomfortable, but he quickly runs and he says to the magnate, Mr. Poznansky, your rabbi is here. And of course, he has such tremendous respect, he quickly just grabbed like a sweater and ran to the front to see the rabbi. Rebbe, how are you? Come in. And the rabbi said, in a couple of minutes. And he started to talk to him about different things of the city, what we're doing, what we're not doing. Mr. Poznansky, who's sitting in the front room where the door is still a little bit open, gets really cold. And after like 5-6 minutes, he says, Rabbi, I am absolutely freezing. Please come in. And the rabbi is still standing in this half-open door. This goes on for another couple of minutes until finally Mr. Poznansky says, Rabbi, ich bin verfreuden. I am frozen. And now the rabbi came in and said, yeah, now I'll tell you why I'm here. You know how you felt? You're freezing? That's only for 6 minutes of your night. Could you imagine the poor, how they're feeling? I came to ask you to contribute to the wood and of course he gave generously. Very intelligent rabbi. How could a rich man feel what it means to be freezing in your own home? So in a very gentle way, the rabbi gave him a taste of this. So where am I going with all of this? Well, we could talk current events, and I could just merely point out all of the countries that are criticizing and abusing the reputation of Israel for trying to defend itself. They never had rockets falling in their city, and they never had to sleep in a bomb shelter. And they were not wakened 2-3 times a night because of the danger of explosives. Nor did their children ever go through the trauma of being frightened and seeing everyone else frightened and never not going to school. Yeah, it's easy to criticize. It's even easier to be righteous. But of course, they have no sense of what this is all about. We could talk about that, but I don't want to. I would merely say that, we have this beautiful concept of when Mashiach will come, what will the effect be? Now, if you ask a observant, knowledgeable Jew, it will go something like this. The Jews will be in Israel, the temple will be rebuilt, we'll all be keeping the Torah. And then you say, okay, but you didn't answer the question. You told me what will be for the Jews. What will be for everyone else? So for everyone else, there'll be a time where there's no war. There'll be a time where human creativity will be on its highest level. The world will go after knowledge. There won't be competition. There won't be envy. There'll be decency. There'll be morality. In fact, there'll be godliness. We say to ourselves, that's really beautiful. Why do Jews have such a vision? And the answer is because they've experienced throughout the world what it means to be envied, what it means to be persecuted, and what it means to be treated in an ungodly fashion. So we experience the pain. We know what it feels like. We can also anticipate the joy. Let's hope and pray by the time the next podcast comes, we'll be already in Israel celebrating together. Shalom.